All right, we're live. What's up, you wonderful folks? It's Alex with Swamp Rat Fishing, and this is Bass and Brews. Tonight, we've got a way different episode. Normally, I interview somebody. Tonight, we're not going to do that. Tonight, we're going to talk about shallow versus deep fishing. Before we even get to that, I want to talk about hooksethoodlums.com. This is the best gear when it comes to the fishing scene, but also the best team that's out there. And as of this recording, they've dropped 3 new drops. I've got to look here because I'm old and got a I got to censor myself that I've got a crappy memory. They've got a Born to Fish full metal jacket style tank top. They've got a pink Shut Up and Fish t-shirt and a Top Water Assault shirt. All of them are awesome. You can use Swamp Rat Fishing, all one word, save yourself some money or not. Doesn't matter. Just go out and support the movement. So again, totally different from what we normally do. You know what I mean? Normally I've got a guest on here. We talk about them. We drink a little bit responsibly, and then we do our thing. But we're going to talk about shallow versus deep fishing. And I don't think it'd be the same if it was just me, right? Like, I feel like if I just did it myself, it's really going to show that I'm not a good fisherman. So for you guys, not just for you guys, for me too, I want to introduce the new co-host of the Bass and Brews podcast, the one, the only, the fan favorite, and also the new Hookset Hoodlums pro staff member, the team Hookset member, the one and only Paul Roberts. Paul, brother, how are you?
I'm wonderfully wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing good, brother. Hey, again, so people know, like me and Paul have been talking. I feel like not only did the episode resonate with you guys, but like I found my yang to my yin. I found the calmer, more experienced fisherman to my spastic Northeast bullshit that I do. And I found that in Paul. There's a lot of dead air there, Paul.
First time somebody ever told me I was the calmer one.
I think in this one, you might be. Well, I mean, we'll see. We'll see where this relationship goes.
Well, I am the one that has to wear a drinking helmet, so
that is a true. Threw me off guard. So that is a true point. If you guys aren't watching on YouTube, you can head over at Swamp Rat Fishing on YouTube, and you can see he's got a stellar unicorn drinking helmet tonight. I dig it.
It's my Little Pony helmet.
I love it.
And it's when I drink the looks like when you know anyway. Yeah, good helmet, good time.
Paul's starting off right. So how we're starting is, as always, Cape May Coastal Evac. Paul, what do you got to drink tonight?
I have an American Classic. I rolled out here today with the Steel Reserve 211 edition. Big boy. 8.1% alcohol, slow brewed for exceptionally smooth flavor. So Steel Reserve.
I've been trying to do local breweries. I love it. I think Steel Reserve is where we got to go with this, right? I think Steel Reserve is the quality that is this podcast.
Well, that's why I had to wear the nice helmet tonight, because I'm drinking the nice beer.
All right, brother, let's crack them. You ready? Oh, I got crap.
Yours sounded better, but mine's more malty.
All right. So it's summertime. I felt like me and you were talking about kind of what topics to discuss. And how this is going to work, folks, is I'd love to have, Paul doesn't even know this, I love to have Paul on twice a month. I'd love for me and Paul and maybe a guest or somebody else twice a month to come on. And then I'm still going to do the interviews as I normally do with folks. And we might have Paul on for those too. but I'd really like to kind of have some discussions about things. I get a lot of DMs. I get a lot of emails. If you guys want to send an email, you can shoot us an email at bassandbrews.com, or that's not a real thing. You can shoot us an email at bassandbrews@gmail.com. Send us fan mail, questions, questionable pictures, whatever you guys want to do. But you can send it there. But I've gotten a lot of like, hey, can you talk about this? Can you talk about that? Right. And I think this is Paul is super knowledgeable. He's a great addition to this team of one, now a wolf pack of two.
Or a kitty cat pack as a connoisseur of cat teas.
I don't know if we're going to do kitty cat pack. I think this is maybe an offline topic. You know what? We're going to put it on the board right there. Listen, we're going to go kitty cat pack. We're going to roll with it.
Yep, we're gonna wear cat tees every episode. Walmart has the best cat tees, by the way. Biggest selection.
I'm gonna have to take a look. So one topic that's coming up now that it's summer is fishing shallow versus fishing deep, and I feel like this is covered a good amount. You know what I mean? But I feel like it's covered in. Sometimes it's covered in a lot of definites. Like when people talk about it, it's very definite. Like this is the way you have to do it. And I think it's great having Paul on and this being his first topic because me and Paul fish completely different types of water and we're in different parts of the country. So I think it's awesome to a good topic to start out with.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's when you get to summertime fishing, it's definitely the way that folks go. At least down here in the South, from my experiences, is you have a short window for that morning bite, which typically you're going to find some cover or you're going to throw on, some main lake points. But then when that sun comes up, and we're talking about water clarity for us, at least in my area here in North Carolina, is 16, 18 inches typically. And so even with that water clarity, that sun gets up and the fish they're out. They're deep, and deep is relative. We'll talk about that, but deep is relative. And
I was about to say like deep is definitely a relative term, right? Because so for my fishery, you talk about 16 to 18 inches of visibility. I don't know if you're saying that's good or bad. But I'm talking about, for me, total water depth is only 6 foot total.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And normally water clarity is around 3 inches to 4, and that's a good day because I normally fish a very tannic, dirty piece of shit water that is South Jersey.
I'm very familiar with the tannic water. I grew up in the sand hills of South Carolina, and that water is tannic. It is iced tea. Dark but clear.
Yep.
I understand that aspect of it. And when deep is relative to the body of water you're on, because the fish are going to relate to structure in the deepest part of the water, typically structure close to the channel. And so every body of water, with the exception of the natural lakes and stuff, which we don't have any here, but in Florida and obviously the New York area and the Great Lake areas where you have the bowls, and California, that's going to be a little bit different. But in general, they're still going to relate to that deep water and structure. It changes a little bit with grass. You get a lot of grass, they're gonna hang to that, and it's because they're very sensitive to light. Bass are more sensitive to light than us by, I don't know, like 50 times or something. I'm no scientist, but I think I read that. So they don't like the light. They don't want to be up there in where they can find that dark in the grass or in the shade of the stump, whatever it may be, deeper on structure. But bass live in deep water most of the year.
So
and that's why during that.
I think that's interesting you say that, right? Because there is I think the general consensus is after the spawn, 50% of the bass go deep, right? And the other half stay shallow. So like I personally, like I totally get what you're saying, and you're talking about them being sensitive to light, but you did talk about grass. So me personally, I'm not a deep water fisherman. I don't pretend to. I also don't go deep. I'll do the mid range for whatever the body of water, right? Because everything's relative. So I'll hit the mid range. I don't ever go deep. I, as a fisherman, am not comfortable fishing deep, and that could be some of it. But a lot of it, I feel like the bigger ones don't want to push off as far, because once you go deep, you got to find some kind of structure. And where I fish, there's not a lot of structure. So I feel like there's more cover. So they're going to hold to that more. And that light thing just means they're going to bury more. They're going to be buried under their docks. They're going to be buried in the grass.
Yeah. And so when you see professional anglers competing and they're in one spot, and this is time of year that you see it in the South, they're in one spot and they're anchored in, auto lock in and just wearing them out, typically on a crankbait or something like that. They found a school of fish. So the bass are, they're like any other fish. They're schooling this time of year, and you get the mega schools. And so the schools that those folks are looking for are your 3-pounding up fish, because that's an adult bass. And typically those mega schools are going to be in the deeper water of the lake, relating to structure and cover as in brush piles, stuff like that, off the main channel. So when you see those folks doing that, but then you go back into the pre-spawn, like in this area, MLF was here for Falls Jordan and Sharon Harris, and those guys were all on the bank because we had a lot of pre-spawn, we had some in spawn.
You guys had rising water during that time too, right? Like they were pushing up, right?
Yeah, it was risen at the time. Was starting to fall a little bit at that point, but it was that pre-spawn, so the fish were up majority. But now here, those fish have moved off, and I still catch. I'll catch good fish, 2-3 pounders, first thing in the morning, throwing my spook.
Right.
But when that sun hits, they're off, and the fish are deep. And here recently they've been in like between 12 and 18 foot of water, and the ones, some of the bigger fish I've seen have been caught off of brush in that depth.
So you mentioned MLF, which I think that helps my argument on the shallow argument here. So MLF is notorious for, I think their limit now is 2 pounds, right? No matter what, it's like 2 pounds per event.
Yeah, I think it changes in some, because at Sharon Harris it was a 3 pound minimum.
Gotcha. Yeah,
but that was the heavy hitters too, so it's different.
Right. So I think for MLF as a whole, it does fluctuate, but no matter what, the minimum is 2 pounds. Because that first year it came out, Justin Wheeler, we'll bring him up again. Last time me and you talked, I got called out for shit talking Justin Wheeler, and I'll do it again. That guy slammed 9 million 1 pound bass, and he won the tournament, and that was the format. I totally get it. But my thing is I feel like when you, and again, I don't fish deep, but from what I see is you got to weed through a lot of 1 pounders. So specifically, if you're a competitive guy and you're only doing the 5 fish format, like you've got to weed through a lot of fish to get to something quality. While I think the shallow, so here's my thought process is that, and again, I'm an idiot. You guys take it out as it is. I'm not an expert. I do pretend to be one, because I am the host and now co-host with Paul of the #1 rated bass fishing podcast in Antarctica. And we've been listed as that in the Antarctica Bassmaster quarterly newsletter. It's an amazing thing. It comes by fax. I get it every quarter. It's amazing. But my thought process is those big ones. Yeah. So the big girls will shift off in post spawn, right? They're going to move away and let the males guard the nest. And I feel like they move to that mid range, not quite shallow, but not quite deep. And then I think the quality fish will then bury themselves back deep. They're going to go to grass. They're going to tuck into that tight grass. And I think that's, for me, in my process, I think it's because that's where more of your forage is going to roll through your little minnows, and they can kind of peep out, suck up what they need to, and be on their way and just sit in that spot. Because I think of big bass as an extremely lazy ambush predator.
But you're also talking about just grass. Like our lakes, the three that I mentioned down here, don't have a lot of grass, little to none. So they're not going to relate to grass here because none to relate to. They're going to take their asses down there close to the channel on points or ledges where you have drops that they can move up and down in during the summertime, and they'll corral the bait balls around here. But most of these lakes are shad heavy, so they'll corral those shad up on a point and go up and feed. And it's interesting. So one of the local lakes around here, part of fishing deep is using your electronics nowadays. Used to, folks just knew where brush piles were or got lucky, and they could pinpoint a spot without anything but knowing this tree, that tree, and that tree.
Right.
But so now we're using electronics. So you're looking for bait balls and you're looking for bass on those electronics, and it's crazy. They think that the bass are feeding early in the morning, but we're not. I'm not seeing here the last couple of weeks. I haven't been seeing a lot of activity on the surface of the water until about 12 to 2. And what they'll do is those mega schools will push the bass or push the shad up on that point, and then they bust up on them. But it's a minute or two. They bust up on them. You throw in there, you catch a couple. But that school's still down there. They're just staging deeper. And so you're talking about from a grass perspective. Yeah, that makes sense on those lakes, but on ours, there's not going to be grass. And if there is grass in areas like that, with the water clarity, that grass ain't going to be deep. It's going to be 3 foot of water, 4 or 5 foot water, maybe because of the clarity. So,
I think that's really interesting. Like that really plays to, again, I feel like a lot of information that comes out is, especially on YouTube or whatever else, is like, this is what you have to do. It's summer. You have to fish deep. You have to go deep. That's the only way to do it, right? But if me and you, this conversation here, we obviously are fishing for the same species, but totally different environment, right? Like, I don't have the big rock structure, those long tapering points. That's not a thing. Most New Jersey lakes are bowls, and then even more fish mostly tidal. So all that kind of goes out the window because I'm fishing current more than anything else, right? But the whole fishing deep thing is kind of, or fishing shallow, right? I mean, it depends on where you're at. I feel like some folks need to realize, like, just because you see it on the internet or on YouTube or you hear it in a podcast, unless it's this podcast, especially don't listen to Jugs and Bugs or Jigs and Bigs, whatever they're called now. Those guys are hacks. No, I'm just joking. They're great friends of the show, but everything's different to where you're at.
And so, like with the Tannic water, where I grew up, there was no tidal,
right?
But the majority of stuff I fished was ponds. And so with a pond, we're looking at the same thing. It was just a giant bowl, and down here we got the coontail and hydrilla and whatever else the shit is. I ain't no aquatics plantologist, but
plantologist. Listen, we're going to add that to the show. We've got Alex from Swamp Rat Fishing and Paul, the amateur plantologist.
That's right. Aqua plantologist. So and that's how we fish in the morning time. It was running a floating worm or a spook or a buzz bait, and then when you weren't catching fish on those after 15, 20 casts, then you moved out a little bit, and we were throwing it in the grass, the edge of grass, and then when that bite stopped, you moved out a little bit more. But I mean, it was all pretty much Texas rig, Carolina rig stuff. So
Right.
when you look at it, when you have that grass aspect, it acts as a shade, and so you will get some. But again, it's all relative. I mean, this you could go on Tactical Bassin and Fish the Moment and watch theirs, and they
Right.
talk about specific body types. I think what we're trying to stay into is just that shallow. And the definition for me for shallow is 10 foot or less, generally
Okay.
speaking.
Right.
Deep is anything after that. Now, if I'm fishing in a 12-acre farm pond that's 8 foot deep, it's a different aspect on that. But I guess what I would tell you to generalize it is that fishing deep means fishing the deepest part of your body of water.
100%.
I'll be that 8 foot
100%.
or 30 foot.
Yep.
That's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
But the techniques are going to be the same. If you're fishing at 8 foot of water, you're probably throwing a jig or a crankbait, Texas rig, Carolina rig. It's going to be the same thing if I'm fishing 20 foot in a 10,000 acre lake. You're going to fish the same techniques.
So for fishing deep, so I know for shallow, I like to do a wacky rig. I like to do a swim jig. That's like my 1-2 punch. Throw that swim jig into that grass because we have a grass or pads. Run that through that, right? And then if that doesn't work, or I get a follow or a swirl, then I'm going to throw normally a flick shake, right? A weighted wacky, because I'm too impatient to wait for that thing to sink, and I don't want to use a spinning rod. Or the Nico. The Nico is clutch, but I don't think it depends on your bait and the water clarity. For me, I throw the Nico in dirtier water clarity. And the reason I do that is because normally I'm using a bigger bait with a so I like using the Missile Baits quiver worm. I don't know if you use that. So it has like
I'm
spade.
cheap as hell. I'm a Yum Dinger man.
You know what? Yum actually has a version of this because Yum, listen, whoever works at Yum, good on you guys. You guys normally just bite off everybody else, which is fine. I get it, right? And you guys charge a lower price. Like, I get it. Good for you guys. Like, but this thing is
around
basically
a lot longer than some of these other bait companies. So
they honestly have. They honestly
they've been around a long time.
And they know what catches fish. It's not sexy, but it catches fish.
There you go.
So I use this worm though.
Old country boy.
What's that?
Nothing. Go ahead.
So normally this quiver worm is like 6 inches, and then it's got about a half an inch of a spade tail on the back end of it. And I'll rig it. And why I like throwing that on the Nico in dirtier water in comparison to cleaner water is because it gives way more action. Right. So you're still having the finesse presentation, but you're giving a thump. You're giving a little vibration to trigger that lateral line. And then you're giving a little more movement to draw them in, even though you're using a finesse presentation. But in clean water, I do not like using the Nico. I feel like that weighted wacky is enough, depending on your bait. You've got to have a stick worm. I like a stick worm. And I like it with a lot of salt content or a lot of water displacement. So you can use the Gary Yamamoto. I'm not rich enough to use those. I use the 6 Sense Clout Worm. That's my favorite. Those are still pretty expensive, not as much, but they got these little hexagonal things on them, and it really slows it down, even though you're using a 1/8 ounce jig head on it. Really breaks it down and kind of makes it shimmer. It's an amazing bait. But those are the techniques that I would use. Those are really my big ones. Those maybe 2 or 3. What would you use for deep? I'm going to rely on you. Again, I don't fish deep. That's not my cup of tea. If I can't see it, I don't like throwing at it.
Yeah, I learned fishing deep, Texas rig and Carolina rig.
Okay.
And, in the summertime, it was a Carolina rig with a trick worm, or I don't even know if Zoom makes them anymore. I still got some packs, but a little centipede.
Okay.
And it's a little French fry looking bait. And so, those two, the Texas rig was, I didn't use that as much. The folks that kind of taught me and I got to fish with were Carolina riggers, and they did it on brush piles. And so we're throwing like 12 to 24-inch leads in that Carolina rig.
Wow.
So when you
Yeah.
reel it up, when your weight is at the top of your rod, your leader's still down here around your hand, kind of. It's a lot to throw.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we fish it though. And it was slow, it was methodical, but we caught good fish. I did fish a little bit of deep diving crankbait. So I've got two DD22s, old DD22s from back I bought in 1998 that somehow I have not lost, because I can take a 6XD out the box tomorrow and go fish with it. And I'll be damned if I probably lost that son bitch 10 minutes into throwing it on a point with nothing but rock. How the hell does that shit happen? So anyway, DD22s, and I fished a little bit of that, and it's that what it comes down to with deep is you're looking to maintain contact with the bottom.
Okay.
And so you want a bait that maintains contact in the depth that you're fishing. That's what you're looking for deep, is maintaining that contact. Now this doesn't apply obviously if fish are suspended.
Right.
So, but you're maintaining contact, and for crankbaits to dive past 18 feet and maintain contact, they're getting better at it, but it's still difficult. You got to have the perfect line.
Yeah.
All that stuff. It's just not consistent for, I would say, the average fisherman, who we are, right? You're Kevin Van Dam. You can throw. You're a different angler or fisher. We got to quit saying fisherman, fisher at that point.
Right?
But for the average, yeah, that's right, or angler. So that's where we're at. And so I made a little diagram. I've been waiting to show this shit all night. I don't know if I can fit it all on here.
Listen, folks.
Shit all by
this is
myself.
why we brought Paul on. If you are not watching on YouTube, make sure you're oh my God, Paul. Make sure you're watching. Paul went out of his way. I love it, man. Okay.
My
so on the right hand
side,
help
me draw any of this. So what we do, right? Okay. What we do, most people are this guy.
So what Paul's pointing at is a guy deep who's casting shallow.
Right. They sit out, let's say they sit 20 feet, they're casting into 10 feet, and they're reeling it back, trying to hit a spot at 15 feet. Yep. All right, we're going to use simple math because I ain't good at numbers unless you got dollar signs in front of
Well, he's from North Carolina. We know he's not good at numbers.
Well, I live in North Carolina originally for South Carolina, so it's even worse than you think. So what we got down here on the other side is you got somebody sitting in shallow water. They're fishing deep and working their bait back. Now, if you think about angles and geometry, which I ain't good at those either, but this makes real life sense, and I am good at real life stuff. You maintain contact with the bottom much better if you sit in shallow water, cast that shit out to the deep water. I'm gonna put this down because it's heavy. I'm tired of holding it.
I got you, brother.
But when you so it's maintaining contact with the ground, and just especially look, we're talking a lot from the kayak angler standpoint.
We are.
And one point we'll bring up is being a kayak angler and the safety and some of the other little things that go with fishing deep.
Yep.
But in general, you can maintain contact with the ground better at the angle of casting in 8 to 10 foot of water and being able to cast it into 20 and working that bait back. You stay in that strike zone later or longer. And, it goes to the Senko aspect of it is weightless Senko. It stays in that strike zone longer. But yeah, so from a standpoint, so we're looking at, you're looking at your 1/2 inch to 3/4 ounce jigs. You're looking at your deep diving crankbaits. Look, flutter spoons and blade baits.
Yep.
Awesome baits. And Oh, the damn flutter spoon is so fun, so fun. So, but you're looking at those types of baits because those are the types of baits that can stay in that deep amount of water.
Right.
It's hard to fish it's hard to fish a Texas rig, Carolina rigs. I mean, that's another one.
It's
but
slow.
you're also feeling
I
the
mean,
bottom.
it's slow.
So.
It's slow.
It doesn't have to be slow though. So in a bass boat,
yeah,
Carolina rigging, you throw it out, you hold your pole at a 45-degree angle, and you bring it towards your shoulder. Right over your shoulder, dragging it.
Right.
That shit's hard as hell in a kayak, and usually in a kayak you're spinning in circles and shit. It's just not as feasible. Look, I put my pole pointing towards the water, and I reel it.
Mm-hmm.
Short little reels, and it imitates the same damn thing as pulling it. And so, but it doesn't have to be slow. Matter of fact, let me ask you a question I ask my son every time we go fish. I'm like, boy, are fish cold-blooded or warm-blooded?
I'm supposed to answer that. Cold-blooded? Because I'm an idiot? I don't know the answer.
They are cold-blooded. You sound like my son at this point. So what does cold-blooded mean?
I mean, their blood is warmed by the temperature around them.
Right. So a lot of people slow down.
Holy shit. Hold on real quick. I didn't know I was going to bring Paul on and get quizzed on natural sciences so early.
Look, when you asked me to come on, you get all of me. Cat teeth, beard, everything.
I was good with that until you quizzed me on high school science because I was a high school dropout. So now I'm feeling better. I got it right.
Yes, you passed. So anyway, what we get is folks tend to be a lot slower in the summertime, but bass, they're geared up, man. I mean, they're like, and you can go any which way with this. I'm just telling you how I like to do it. I like to start off fast.
Right.
I throw that damn crankbait out there, and let's say I'm fishing in 12 foot of water. I'm throwing a 5XD. I want that thing digging trenches in there, and I'm reeling it as fast as I can. And so, it's there. It doesn't have to be slow. You can take that Carolina rig, and if you're maintaining contact with the bottom, you can reel that thing. Take a swing head. I love fishing swing heads, and that is a finesse crankbait. A swing head has a similar action, and it's to be fished faster, as fast as you can reel it without it coming up off the ground. Well, go sit in 20 foot and throw it in a 10 and reel it back, and then go sit in a 10 and throw it in a 20 and reel it back, and see which one makes more sense. I'm talking about this from a kayak perspective too, when we've got some other extenuating circumstances that makes offshore and deep fishing a little bit different than sitting in your bass boat on.
I think it makes it extremely different and difficult, right? Because if anybody's fished out of a kayak, you guys know that any bait that you throw that has any kind of resistance on the back end, a chatterbait, a crankbait, a swim jig, whatever it is, something that's going to give resistance in the water, you feel that your boat's going to pull towards that. And from my understanding, and maybe you can help me out here, like a lot of this offshore deep fishing is spot related, right? Like you're trying to hit a certain spot. So when you're using these baits, it's extremely difficult, I feel like, and honestly, almost like futile to try to run these things with a deep crankbait that's going to pull your boat super fast, and you're only going to be able to hit that spot, hit it once, backpedal. If you got a good kayak, if you have a Hobie because you're a Kyle or a Chode or whatever you want to call them, and you can't backpedal. But you know what I mean?
You motherfucker talking all that shit, and I wasn't even on here to stand up for myself by Hobie twice. Shit.
But
so on that,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. And so on that, right? So I mean, their kayaks are spotlight now. I mean,
Old
I
Town,
mean,
right?
you know, you've got that.
OT.
You can anchor your kayak. Now, anchoring your kayak, safety issue comes in because you know where I fish, we have the biggest wakes we're going to get is going to be from a pontoon or a ski boat.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have houseboats. We don't have barges. You know, we don't
Right.
have some of these things that can create a wake that could flip us over. But you know, you have ways around that. The other thing that people don't utilize much anymore, and this is how I learned how to fish deep, is with markers.
Okay.
So knowing the spot that you need to throw to is one thing. And so either you have a GPS coordinate or you triangulate it with shit on the bank,
Right.
like the old dudes do. But you still need to know either where to, you know, how to position your boat and where to throw. And so, you know, you using just regular old markers
Yeah.
and chunk those things out there. And so that's how I do it. So yes, as the wind's blowing me, or if I have to because I'm fishing a 6XD and it's pulling me this and there, I always know that point that I need to be throwing to because I have that marker out there.
Mm-hmm. I think that's yeah. So the marker system, I have used that. That's an old trick I learned from the Coast Guard was using a marker system. I think it's a great system. It works awesome. But again, I'm going to go back to so we're in kayaks. If you're not in a kayak, maybe this portion might not be for you. But I'm in a kayak. Paul's in a kayak. I'm in a better one. He's in an inferior one, but costs a lot more. But no, I'm just joking. But you run a fish finder, right? Because I don't, because I'm so shallow minded, I guess. I don't use a fish finder. I know you do though, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I think using that fish finder will maybe help you spot those ones. And for me, that shallow minded guy, so I'm looking for the actual cover. I'm looking to hit that log. I'm looking to anything in that area, right? I'm looking for current around it. And for me, it's very visual on something that I can visually see with my own eyes. Why I feel like the deep fishermen, we're hitting a lot of technical difficulties. I don't know what's going on at Paul's house. He's either having a rave, or he's being raided. I don't know if the police are coming in. This could be the end of his co-host trip right here because he just got swatted. I hope you guys on on YouTube are watching this because it's amazing. But so is it possible to do that offshore game without a fish finder?
It is possible, yes. Very difficult. At minimum,
I'm sorry. Paul's got good stuff. Paul, your audio is solid coming through, but the video, you're either there or you're not there. But somehow you're just like disappearing from the frame. It is utterly amazing. Again, you guys, if you're listening to audio, find us over at YouTube. It's Swamp Rat Fishing. You can Google it up, or you can search Bass and Brews. You'll find it there, but this is magnificent. I love it. Oh, we got a different view. You're there. You're there. You're locked in now. Bro, we had some X-Files up in there. It was
dude,
on
I told you when we were testing this out earlier, when that started happening, it was like Eminem's Rap God video. Except I ain't Eminem nor no rap god.
He's eating M&Ms, but he is not Eminem.
Oh man, no, I'm eating Girl Scout cookies. I got a Girl Scout cookie connect, and I got this refrigerator right here is probably 88% full of Girl Scout cookies. Anyway,
hold on.
can't talk
Time
about
out.
it on the download.
Time out because it's Bass and Brews, and we are not professional. All we do is bullshit. Yeah, dude, I want to see the fridge. What is your favorite Girl Scout cookie? Bro, what's your favorite one?
The I call caramel delights.
Oh,
That's
the
on my
Samoan,
cookies.
the Samoan one,
They're
right?
just Samoas, but yeah, they're the caramel delights.
Right.
That's my fat
Those,
boy pleasure.
dude, those are my favorite. Dude, I don't do a lot of so what you do is you take those. I'm not a big sweets guys, but you take those Samoan delights, or what are they called now? They're called something different. But
Caramel delights.
sure, you take those, you crush them up. Dude, you put those over like regular ass, like Breyer's French vanilla. Money, bro. And then what you do is you put a little cup of bourbon next to it. Money. It is so good. Either that or the grasshoppers, and run those super cold, super frozen, delicious. But
like real grasshoppers.
no, like shit, what do they call them now? I guess you know what I'm talking about, the mint and chocolate chip ones. Are those not called grasshoppers?
Thin Mints. It's the
Thin
most
Mints.
overrated fucking cookie in the fucking world. Have you ever eaten real grasshoppers?
No, because I'm not a savage. We've talked about this. I'm from the north. You're
Oh
from
my
the
god!
south. You have.
When you come down here, we're eating so much delicious food.
No. We're gonna eat delicious food. We're not eating grasshoppers, motherfucker. Like,
I'm gonna cook you up some of the best mealworms you've ever had.
you come up here, I'll cook you
And
some of these northeast cicadas and a little bit of fentanyl, and we'll see how that goes.
and we're gonna go bass fishing, and we're gonna eat fresh bass.
Listen, shout out. So if you guys haven't listened, there's another podcast out there. They're called Jigs and Bigs. They are a far superior podcast in quality. They really are. Bobby Roast Beef and Sean the Fisherman. But I just want you all to know that Sean the Fisherman is a dirty fish killer. This man will actually eat bass and put them on a pizza.
I clean bass that are still swimming around in the bucket. I mean, I kill them first, but then I clean them and eat them.
But are you putting them on pizza?
I mean, no, I'm from South Carolina. We fry them.
I think with how long so if people don't know, I'm originally from Washington State. I have lived
You
in
ain't
New
never seen no
Jersey.
bass.
Right, yeah. Like, it's a funny story. Like when I told my dad after I got into bass fishing way later in life, he was like, "What the fuck is that?" And I was like, "Yo, did you know we had these all over the place?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And when he actually went out for the first time, I said, "Hey, throw a chatterbait, throw this on the back." I sent him links. And he's like, "I'm not going to do it." So I actually like Amazoned him a chatterbait and a trailer. Homeboy caught a 7-pound. That was like his second bass ever. I was like, fuck you, Pops. Like, okay. Like, because when he took me out, we went for like rainbow trout and kokanee, which are super fun. Cutthroat. Like, I did all of that, but it was like fly fishing, whatever, right? But guess what? We kept a lot of fish. But pizza is not a thing in Washington. I am still a fan of Canadian bacon and pineapple pizza. I think it is the best pizza ever. And now that I live in the Northeast, I know that's seen as sacrilege, but it's a primo pizza. But you know what I would never do? Put fish on a pizza. And Sean the Fisherman I want to make sure we take a minute here. I want to make sure everybody can write this down. Sean the Fisherman from the Jigs and Bigs podcast eats largemouth bass pizza. This savage puts largemouth bass on pizza.
Largemouth bass is delicious. People just I don't know, something's wrong with folks, but we've got way off deep water. Besides, deep water largemouth take more delicious than shallow water ones.
All right.
I'm just making that shit up. I don't even know
All
what the hell we was talking about. It was important though. And then we got off talking
so we were talking about
M&Ms
using
and M&Ms.
this is it. This is what we do. This is what you signed up for with Bass and Brews. This is the like we stay locked on and then we drift.
All
right.
But you just called me Mr. Tangent because I ain't never stayed on the subject long.
All right, so we were talking about using a fish finder. So fishing offshore, is it absolutely 100% required to use that fish finder?
You don't have to have a fish finder, but you have to have something that tells you depth. That can be a flasher. And the basic is a flasher, which was long before fish finders.
Right.
And I hate calling them fish finders because people that use them as fish finders,
Yeah,
throw out Panoptics. But you basically, to fish deep, you have to have something that shows you bottom contour.
Mm-hmm.
Or you just better be able to fish 10, 12 hours a day every day out of the week to be able to figure out where the fish are.
Right.
So you have to have at least something that shows you depth and contours, or depth so you can create your own contours. Because when you're fishing deep, you're looking for those breaks, those break points. So where it drops from 10 to 14 and 14 to 20 and 20 to 22, or if you're in a place in Florida, you might be looking for a contour change of 10 feet to 11 feet and from 11 feet to 11 and a half.
Right.
Again, it's all contours and depth is all relative to where you are. But yeah, it's imperative to have something that shows depth. And it could be as simple as a flasher with an analog dial, all the way up to your $2,000 and $3,000 units that only show you depth, but you can see the fish. And then that's where you get into where folks now can fish, as you can see those mega schools there. So you're not just trying to find a break point on some kind of structure and fish it because the fish should be there. Now you can actually tell that they're there. Now, are they willing to bite, or is it going to be later in the day? I mean, that's what you have. That comes down to lure presentation. You just got to set up and chuck some lures out there and see. But then you get some of these professional guys that can see fish on graph and go, they're not ready.
Right.
But that's also taking, a welder, for instance, that can come over here and weld something with his eyes closed, and then I know how to weld, but it's not the same. So, but yeah, you got to have some kind of technology to really start to dial that area in.
All right. Well, unfortunately, Paul, I think we're having some connection issues. But with this, dude, I think we have covered this pretty fully. I think it's been awesome. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope everybody enjoyed hearing Paul, because he's going to be a staple here on Bass and Brews as long as he'll continue to have me in this bromance. I'm waiting for you to accept my oh, there it is. Oh, you guys can't see a digital hug. There it is. All right, everybody. Hey, so again, we've got more content coming out. Paul's going to be here for the long run, hopefully. It's going to be up to him. I'm all on board on Paul. So, but before we leave, I do want to give this is a little quiet shout out. Yep. So I found out that my mother-in-law, Marie, watches these shows. So Marie doesn't fish at all. But she has made the comment that the show is great, but you guys drink too many brews. So Marie, if you hear this, I'm going to know. Yeah, exactly. Right. All right, Paul. Paul, thanks for coming on. Everybody else, what am I saying? Thanks for coming on. This is your show now, too. So everybody else, thanks for listening. Paul, what do you got to say? Close us out, Paul. Paul, this is your moment as the co-host I'm now going to give you, I want you to give us the last 15-second closeout. I want words of wisdom. We haven't rehearsed this to anybody. I want words of wisdom to end everybody's week, right? This releases on a Friday. We're going to go to a weekend, set them off right, Paul.
I'll tell you this, especially with fishing. Don't think about thinking too much or you're going to think too much.
I love it, brother.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody.
True.
I love it. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, all that other bullshit that you're supposed to do. And we'll see you guys on the next one.